All right. Over 100 years ago, the American poet Robert Frost wrote these words: Two roads diverged in a wood, and I took the one less traveled by, and that has made all the difference. There's some fundamental concepts of living the Christian life. And a lot of times during sermons and in Sunday school lessons, when we talk about Christian living, our emphasis is directed toward all the benefits of living the Christian life: the peace, the joy, the power, the victory, and on and on. And these benefits, they're very real. I think we'd all agree on that. But we also need to remember that there's a less glamorous side to discipleship, a side that doesn't often make it into the advertising brochure, if you will. And I'm talking about self-denial. I'm talking about battling temptation and dealing with the defeat, because sometimes we get defeated. I'm talking about the trials and the tribulations, the long nights, the lonely hours. All of these, plus other things, are also a part of the disciple's life at times. All the encouragement that we get from the world, as we map out our lives, is that we should take the path of least resistance, that we should take the easy way at every turn. That's what the world tells us that we need to do. But the reality of the Christian life is just the opposite. The Christian life is lived out by taking the less traveled road. Not the easy way, but the right way. Jesus said in Matthew 7, verses 13 and 14, "Enter through the narrow gate. For the gate is wide, and the road is broad that leads to destruction, and there are many who go through it. How narrow is the gate, and difficult the road that leads to life, and few find it." We need to be among the few that find it, that walk it, that live it. So let's be bold enough and brave enough when two roads diverge, to take the one less traveled. And I think if we do, it'll make all the difference in the world. The world is fascinated with the idea of shortcuts. Everybody loves a good shortcut. If you want to travel anywhere here in East Texas, I guarantee you that Jerry Smith can give you 7 different shortcuts to get to your final destination. I guarantee it. However, I think we all have a few stories in our history in which the strategy of taking a shortcut proved to be not at all that wise and really not that short. If I use the term Donner Party, what comes to mind for you? Okay? That term came from the fact that in the spring of 1846, a group of around 90 immigrants left Springfield, Illinois, and headed west. They were led by the brothers Jacob and George Donner. The group attempted to take a new and supposedly shorter route to get to California. But they soon encountered extremely rough terrain, a lot of delays, and they eventually became trapped by the heavy snowfall that was in the Sierra Nevada mountains. And as rumor had it, they were reduced to cannibalism in order to survive through the winter. Only half of the original group reached California the following year. We all love shortcuts to the extent that all too often we find them irresistible to resist. You want to get healthy? You want to lose weight? Here's a way to lose weight really fast. You want to build financial security? Here's how to get rich quick. You want to own your own home? Here's how you can do it with no money down. When we hear about shortcuts, our ears tend to perk up. But the fact is that there are no shortcuts for the best things in life. There are no shortcuts for the things that truly matter most. Just as you can't microwave or gourmet meal and make it taste good, you can't shortcut success. You can't shortcut a solid marriage and a stable family. You can't shortcut the process of Christian discipleship. A well-known pastor once said that if he had only one bit of advice to give to pastors and ministers, it would be settle in for the long haul. Basically, he would say to them, in effect, if you want to change the course of people's lives for generations to come, you need to think in terms of decades, not months, because it's not going to happen overnight. I would say the same thing to anyone who's serious about discipleship. Settle in for the long haul, because it's going to take time to become a solid, mature, productive follower of Christ. A lot longer than you want it to be honest. There are no shortcuts in the process. In the life of Jesus, we see to a great extent an example of what the discipleship's life is supposed to be. Jesus said in Luke 6:40, a disciple is not above his teacher, but everyone who is fully trained will be like his teacher. There's a sense in which we all must walk the same path that Jesus walked, to an extent. Our journey will mirror his journey. I say to an extent because his journey included the road to Calvary. Good possibility that ours won't go that way, okay? But our journey will include the road of self-denial, of obedience, humble submission, all of that towards the will of God in everything that we do. So tonight I want us to look at a brief text in which Mark gives a quick outline of the early days of Christ's ministry. These events mirror the journey that we need to take as followers of Christ. These three events that took place in Jesus' life that need to take place in our own lives as well, without any possibility of a shortcut along the way. So as we talk about taking the road less traveled, here are three essential characteristics of the road that leads to maturity in the life of a disciple. First of all, the road less traveled involves a season of preparation. And I might say, unglamorous preparation. As Jesus began his public ministry, he was baptized by John in the River Jordan. Look at Mark 6, verses 9 through 11. It says, in those days, Jesus came from Nazareth in Galilee and was baptized in the Jordan by John. As soon as he came up out of the water, he saw the heavens being torn open and the Spirit descending to him like a dove. And a voice came from heaven, you are my beloved Son, I take delight in you. This event was not only the beginning of his public ministry, It was the culmination of years of preparation on the part of Jesus. Quiet, no frills, behind the scenes preparation. Christ had spent 30 years of his life working as a craftsman in his father's carpenter shop. He had all this potential, all this wisdom and knowledge and power and ability, and yet he spent years working a very simple trade out of the spotlight, out of the public eye. And what did his heavenly Father say to him as this phase of his life came to a close? I take delight in you. Those years in the carpenter shop were years in which Jesus was learning to do the work that he had come to earth in order to do. Those years of preparation were part of the learning process that he needed to have. With his baptism, the Father was saying, in effect, okay, now you're ready to take your message to the world. The simple fact is that in order for God to use you publicly, he must first tutor you privately. That's the reason, and that's the season of preparation that every disciple must experience. So what does our preparation involve? Well, it involves becoming a student of the Word, which is why at least once a month, every pastor, every Sunday school teacher will try to encourage you to get serious about your daily Bible study. You can't prepare to be used by God without first becoming a student of the Word. Preparation also involves a commitment to prayer. Now I'm talking about time spent every day in the presence of God. I'm also talking about developing the habit of praying without ceasing, praying all day long, in constant conversation with our Heavenly Father. But preparation also involves being faithful in the little things. Just as Jesus was faithful in the day-to-day details of the work of being a carpenter, we need to be faithful in the day-to-day details of the work that God has put on our plate, even when it's the kind of work that's not really a part of your long-term plans. Your faithfulness to each task prepares you to do the greater work that he has called you to do. When I was in college, I had a friend. Name was Dawn. No offense. Not you at all, believe me. But his name was Dawn. And he knew that he was not going to be a pizza delivery guy for the rest of his life. That's not what he wanted to do. That's not what he felt he was called to do. He felt he was called to teach music. Okay? He was in the music program at Friends University. But he had to have a job. So he got a job delivering pizzas. And he decided that he was going to be the best delivery pizza guy in Wichita. Okay? Now, Don had a great sense of humor. He was a very funny guy. And so he decided that he would put humor into his deliveries. He would always go down to the costume shop in the music building, and he'd find different costumes to wear while he was out delivering pizzas. If he was out working, he kept a whole bunch of them in the back of his car. The music director didn't necessarily know that, but a lot of us did. Okay? But he got costumes from the prop department to use when he was delivering pizzas. Or, for example, when he pulled up to a house that he wasn't familiar with, and if the people opened the door and were waiting on him to get to the house, to bring them their pizza, he would reach in back and grab an empty pizza box, get out of his car, and start running up to their house and do a fake trip and land on top of the pizza box. And the people watching were horrified because they thought, oh no, our pizza just got smushed. And then he'd get up and act all apologetic and open it up and there was nothing in it. And then he'd go get their real pizza and give to them. He did all kinds of things. Word soon spread. People would call the pizza place and ask for him specifically to see if he was delivering that night. And if he wasn't, many times they'd say, yeah, we don't want pizza. They wanted him to deliver their pizza because they never knew what was going to happen when he got there to give them their pizza. His tips were through the roof. And I can honestly say that for a couple of years, he was the best pizza delivery guy in Wichita. He was certainly the most popular. Part of the preparation process is being faithful in the little things. Wherever God has placed you, be the best that you can be. That's why Jesus told the story about the master who said to his servant in Matthew 25:23, well done, good and faithful servant. You have been faithful with a few things. I will put you in charge of many things. Every time you obey, even in the smallest way, you take one more step up the ladder of preparation. There's no shortcut to being used by God. There's no shortcut to spiritual maturity. There's no shortcut to becoming a seasoned follower of Jesus Christ. You must be willing to undergo the process of preparation. And now I want to tell you where your preparation is going to take you. Before it takes you to the finish line, and before it takes you to the winner's circle, the preparation process will take you through a time of testing. That's because the road less traveled involves a season in the desert. Right after Jesus was baptized, right after he heard his Father say, with you I am well pleased, the Gospel of Mark tells us in verses 12 and 13, immediately the Spirit drove him into the wilderness. He was in the wilderness 40 days, being tempted by Satan. He was with the wild animals, and the angels began to serve him. Now, Mark gives us an abbreviated version of this event. We know a whole lot more about this event from the stories that we can read in some of the other gospel accounts. In Matthew and Luke, we learn that Jesus spent these 40 days of fasting. And during this time, he was tempted by Satan to take his own shortcut through life. I believe that Jesus knew at this point what he had to do, what he had come to earth to do. And that he'd come to take away the sins of the world. That he'd come to preach the gospel to the poor, to proclaim freedom for prisoners, to offer sight to the blind, to release those who were oppressed. Jesus knew what he had come to do, and he knew that his mission included a hill called Golgotha. And here was Satan saying to him, I know a shortcut. I know a way out. Just turn your back on God, give your allegiance to me, and I will give you all the kingdoms of the world. This is the easy way for you. But Jesus stood bold in that moment and said in Matthew 4:10, away from me, Satan, For it is written, worship the Lord your God and serve him only. Jesus was saying, I refuse to take a shortcut. I'm going to do things God's way. Now get out of my face. I want you to know that this less traveled road of discipleship that Jesus calls us to includes, without fail, a season in the desert, a time of testing, a time when the opportunity is presented to you to take the easy way out, a time when you have the opportunity to say, absolutely not. I'm not going to take a shortcut. There is no easy way for me. I'm going to do it God's way, even if it means I'm in the desert for the rest of my life. No matter what the cost, I'm going to live my life God's way. And there's a third characteristic of the road less traveled that I want you to see. The road less traveled involves living your life in forward motion. You can see the sequence of events here. Jesus was baptized by John. Then Jesus spent 40 days in the desert. And then shortly afterward, John was arrested and ultimately beheaded. Mark writes in Mark 6:14, after John was arrested, Jesus went to Galilee, preaching the good news of God. I want you to notice the significance of how this is phrased. Jesus, he had the chance when John went into prison to back off a little bit. He could have returned to the carpenter shop. Maybe he could have restructured his message so that it was a little more palatable to the religious leaders. He could have even gone back into the desert and spent the rest of his life as a hermit. Probably the choice I would have made. But instead, he kept moving forward. God had called him to preach the good news. So he went about preaching the good news. In spite of what happened to John, in spite of the opposition that was certainly going to come his way, he kept living his life in forward motion, doing the work that he had been sent to do, proclaiming the message that he had been sent to proclaim. At some point in every disciple's life, there needs to be a come what may moment in which you say, I'm going to keep going forward, no matter what, come what may. I don't know what the future holds, but I'm moving forward in God's direction, come what may. There's opposition all around me, but I'm moving forward no matter what. This may cost me everything I have, but I'm moving forward, come what may. Just as Jesus came to this earth with a mission to fulfill, God has given each of us a mission to fulfill as well. There's a reason why you're here. And regardless of whatever the specifics of your purpose in life may be, I know without a doubt that your mission includes living a life that brings glory to the Lord Jesus Christ and brings others into a closer relationship with Him. You are here to do kingdom work. God has been preparing you your whole life for this work. And now He's waiting for you to say, no shortcuts. I'm ready to live my life in forward motion. I'm going to do things God's way, come what may. You can say these words in only an instant, but it takes a lifetime to achieve them. You can't microwave Christian maturity and hope that it's done, hope that you'll get it in 60 seconds. It doesn't work that way. It's a process. It takes time. God is calling us to settle in for the long haul. Before God can use you, there needs to be a time of preparation in which you become committed to the Word, committed to prayer, and committed to obedience. There also needs to be, in every disciple's life, a season in the desert, a season marked by struggle that ultimately becomes, for you, a defining moment in which you turn your back on the idea of doing things the easy way. There also needs to be, in every disciple's life, that attitude of focused determination to keep living life in a forward motion. No matter what, you're going to do things God's way. There are no shortcuts to this level of Christian living. When you try to shortcut God's plan for your life, you end up only shortchanging yourself. So surrender totally to the Lord. Let Him prepare you and use you as He sees fit. And then live your life for Him, come what may. Take out your prayer sheets, if you would.